Hi, this is the Startup Show. We're trying something new today, a different microphone. I hope you can hear it okay. My name is John Wren. We're here each Friday at noon Mountain Daylight Time to talk about startup. If you're starting a new career, new project or campaign, or a new business, we hope you'll join us and consider being on the show. We're going to be beginning a series of interviews with people who have started a successful career, a successful project or campaign, or a successful business. And if you'd like to be on the show, give us a call Monday or Tuesday, 303-861-1447. Sponsored by the Small Business Chamber of Commerce. And we work towards helping people turn their idea into a business that does good work. And good work has the quality of course, being a necessary and useful product or service, but also that the business is organized and managed in such a way that it is a good learning experience for all concerned. Some people think the best learning experience is to start a business, but it's always a learning experience if the business is well managed for employees and for vendors and for everyone concerned. And we have a venturesome economy. People are willing to try new things. Sometimes customers learning a lot too. So that's good work, and it's adequate income for everyone involved in the business. Now, what's an adequate income? Depends a little bit on whether you're paying the living wage or you're receiving the living wage. That was one of my dad's sayings. You can see the board behind me. See the board right there that hangs on the wall. My daughter made this for me, and I'm going to put it up on the website. It's my dad's favorite sayings that he would say over and over, and they became ingrained in us all, and my daughter made this. That's right down at the bottom. The definition of a living wage depends on whether you are getting it or paying it. And so in a way, we have the Republicans, they're the employer party, and the Democrats are the employee party. That's not at all accurate. I mean, there's people that own businesses in both parties. There's people that work for others in both parties. And, my friends, libertarians, Green Party people, they say there's no difference between the Republicans or the Democrats, but that's really the way that it's supposed to be. Now, there's a big difference this year, and we'll talk more about that in just a minute. But whatever you're involved in, we'd like to try to help you here be more effective at the grassroots level. The problem in this country, I don't think is at the top. I think it's at the grassroots level in our neighborhoods. We just get alienated, isolated, off in the corner by ourselves. I do this. And it's one of the reasons I started several little groups a couple of decades ago. One of them, and now we've bundled them together into the Small Business Chamber of Commerce, Inc., and we're trying to cooperate with local chambers to help them and the local community newspaper start similar groups across Colorado, and who knows, maybe across the country eventually. But there is a need for an alternative message to what's being put out today. It's, Star Trek's got the perfect image for it. Borg, this, machine-like quality. And now there's a new TV show on that I think is another metaphor for the same thing, the Borg phenomena, and that is brain dead. And these ants take over people's heads, and they become ideological idiots. Idiot means isolated, alone. And that's what Borg is always pushing us towards, being isolated, alone, robotic. One of the ways that I can spot the robots right now is the reaction to this presidential campaign. First of all, in our system of government, it makes not all that much difference who's president. Now, it makes some difference, obviously, but the founders were very fearful of a tyrant, and there are checks and balances built into the system that it's difficult for any one person to come in and do all that much damage. And whoever is working with the generals, they're going to be shaping the military. Now, if you got somebody that started, and there's no way in the world I would ever vote for Donald Trump, because I just don't think he's forthcoming enough. It's too much of an unknown quantity. I like Gary Johnson very much in New Mexico, except for a couple of issues he's wildly off on, I believe, although, sometimes the office makes the man, and I think that would be the case with Gary Johnson. I think he'd come into office and, maybe give some careful consideration to how he looks at all the issues that he's involved in, and the campaign is going to help him. I just hope he gets in the debate, because we're going to have a much better idea of who he is if he's debating Trump and Clinton. And there'll be debates coming up soon. I think there's 2 or 3 before the election, and he needs to be part of that. So if you just search on Google for Gary Johnson, New Mexico. He's a former governor, 2-term governor, very well liked, a lot of experience. He was elected governor as a Republican, and now he's a libertarian. The Libertarians picked him as their presidential candidate, and he will be on the ballot in all 50 states as a libertarian. But if he goes to Washington, D.C. as president, of course, he'd be thinking in terms of Republican, because we do have a 2-party system. You'll go back into Washington, and there's this partisan debate that is healthy. This is what we want. You need to have, Washington and Jefferson would have preferred no political parties, but they saw that if they didn't organize something, that Hamilton would win every election. And so there was an opposition party organized, and that's kind of morphed down the ages and what we have now. Now, who knows? Maybe something better is going to come along, but as of right now, I think our 2-party system serves us well. When the caucus is involved, the neighborhood caucus, I think what's given us 2 unpopular candidates this year is the fact that we've shifted from the caucus to presidential primaries. And crazy people here in Colorado are wanting to push us right into the same thing. Some are mistaken, and people of goodwill, and they just are trying to get more people involved, and they think if it's a little bit easier and you just walk in and pull a lever, and you do that just like you do in the real elections. There is a primary election and a general election. So the primary before the general, but then there's the selection of presidential candidates before our state primary. And, they want to take what we do with the caucus here in Colorado, what New Hampshire does with the presidential primary and others. There are only about 4 states left with the caucus system. And Donald Trump, I think in Nevada, it wasn't a majority of the votes, but he did better than the other Republicans. Other than that, he gained no traction in any of the caucus states, which I think is the best argument for why we need to stick with the Colorado caucus here in Colorado, and that other states ought to consider it. Now, states are never going to all go caucus, but why not preserve the caucus where it exists right now? And we've had an effort going here to fight in the state legislature, a crazy idea that gets pounded through for these last 2 years of shifting to a presidential primary. And for 2 years, we've been able to kill it in committee. And that's the imperial we. It was really me and a political advisor to myself, Corky Kyle. And Corky felt like it was good to form a political committee just so that we would know, people could look us up if we say Save the Caucus. Save the Caucus originally was organized back in 2002, fought Amendment 29 and was disbanded. And then I brought it back to life just recently to try to take on, any initiative that might make it to the ballot. Now, we're not sure if they're going to make the ballot or not. We'll know August 8th, Monday, August 8th, the signatures are all due. And there may be something on the ballot we have to fight. And if we do, we're going to have to raise quite a bit of money. And that would be a shame, because that effort could be used in a different way. And to a certain extent, we'll take advantage of the opportunity of organizing to fight whatever the initiative is, but it will also give us maybe more traction getting the grassroots organizations started. And so I say, well, it's too bad that will be wasted money. Who knows? But anyway, we'll just have to go whichever way the wind is blowing to either fight the initiative, or we're going to go move forward with this idea of a grassroots neighborhood organization. Because I believe if we could get small groups started in every neighborhood across Colorado, it would revolutionize the 2018 Colorado caucus. And Save the Caucus is going to be trying to find people who would like to help us organize in their neighborhood. And the primary effort will be civic education. And we're going to try to increase the informed participation in the 2018 Colorado caucus. And so if you're interested in maybe being part of that, or even, we're looking for a few good people to really get involved with it, be on the steering committee, or even we have a little bit of a budget, we'll probably be hiring an executive director. So if you'd be interested in helping in your own neighborhood, or being on the steering committee, or being the executive director, give me a call Monday or Tuesday. It's John Wren, 303-861-1447. John Hickenlooper spoke at the Democratic National Convention yesterday. I've put it up online, and we're going to be talking about that at length next week. But take a look at it, see what you think. Governor Hickenlooper is one of our all-time most popular governors, and I voted for his opponent when he became mayor, and I still think that his opponent would have done a much better job as mayor. But who knows? Maybe, if you look at Denver and you look around the country, we're doing much better economically. But are we really doing better? Are we building on a foundation of sand that we just don't see the problems clearly yet? He supported this light rail system in Denver that I think is draining the money out of RTD, and as a result, bus service keeps getting cut back and back and back. And as they cut back bus service, fewer and fewer riders on the buses. So for the light rail, which serves the wealthy suburbs to get them down to work downtown, wonderful. But economically, it's killing us. And, we have all these cars pouring into Denver. Governor Lamb was going to drive a silver spike through the 470 highway because he knew that better transportation was going to lead to more people. And sure enough, that's what the train has done. Now more people are out in the suburbs because they can ride the train downtown. And then that brings in a lot of people that can't afford to live out in the suburbs, and they're living, and the roads are totally jammed. You can't say that the light rail, somebody asked me online, how is it to live in Denver? And I always say, terrible, don't move here because we've got too many people. And it is a wonderful place in a lot of ways. The weather, all kinds of reasons to move here, but the reason not to move here is so many people have moved here already. And I think you have to either, I don't know if it's credit or blame that Mayor Hickenlooper deserves for bringing these people into Denver. Now, he's not from Denver. He comes in, creates this nightmare, and now it looks like he's headed out of town. But it seems to me everybody in Colorado ought to be trying to do everything they can to get him into the Hillary Clinton administration if she gets elected, because at least that would get him out of Denver. And he's picked a lieutenant governor that looks pretty good. She's got experience, Kaiser, and I think Kaiser does a great job. It's well managed. She's got that management experience. She's new to government, but that might help her come in with fresh eyes. And Hickenlooper has been here and has served, and now he's moving on. And I think we have to beware of these politicians that do that to us, that they come to Colorado and become a candidate, they get elected, they serve, and then they leave. And, look at how many of our people here have done that. Other communities, I had a boss that had worked in Cincinnati, and he said in Cincinnati, people make money and then they stay in Cincinnati. And that's why they have, if they need to raise money for the symphony, they call the wealthy people in that have stayed in Cincinnati and they just write a check for what's needed. But here in Denver, people come, they get wealthy, and then they leave for the most part, partly because of the high altitude. But for whatever reason, we're kind of a different place. And I think James Mejia, who could have been elected mayor and understood Denver better than Mayor Hickenlooper, he would have done a much better job, and we'd be on much more sound footing right now, although it wouldn't be nearly as Aspen-like. Now, is being like Aspen something we really aspire to? I don't think so. But that's the way we're headed, and I don't know what we do now. Once the genie is out of the bottle, I think prices may just keep going up and up and up as they have in Aspen. And, Aspenizing Colorado, that's John Hickenlooper's legacy, really. He has done a lot. Whether it's good or bad, we will see. But watch his talk, and we're going to talk about it here next week. You can find it on our Small Business Chamber website. We'll have contact information at the end of this. Take a look. Now, we're also starting to talk about what we're doing with the Small Business Chamber in a slightly different way. We're going to be calling it Socratic Startup. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that it's not Borg-like. Star Trek has now come out with their new episode. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hoping Borg is one of the characters in it, because the Borg Star Trek character, I think, is a perfect analogy for this phenomena of people getting caught up with things in an unhealthy way. They become ideological instead of being human, and it's machine-like, and you make decisions. You have this algorithm in your brain, and you just do things automatically. We get pushed in that direction in all kinds of ways. Political system is that way. People demonize the other political party. If they're a Republican, the Democrats are the bad guys. If they're a Democrat, the Republicans are the bad guys, when we really need a healthy debate between the two parties. And yes, they should be sincere. But what happens when people demonize something like that is they have lost faith in what really truly is important. And this country's always been real clear on, in God we trust. It's not in the Republicans we trust. It's not in the Democrats that we trust. It's in God. And it seemed to me as I watched Hillary Clinton last night, which was a phenomenal talk. I mean, I thought it was great, but it's like some movies I've gone to, and I love the movie, and then I read the review, and I never would have gone if I'd read the review. Well, Hillary Clinton's talk last night was sort of like that. If you read the reviews this morning, you might not even watch it if you missed it last night. But I urge you to find it online and watch it and make up your own mind about what she's saying. I think she had some excellent points. Now, I will never vote for Mr. You are fired. I'm just not going to vote for him. The only way that I would change my mind about that is if I would meet one-on-one with him and be able to ask him some questions about parts of his life that I may be misperceiving. And I won't even ask him those questions in a group setting, because his public persona has already answered them. I'd like to know what's in his heart. And sometimes the only way you can know that, he's going to be here in Denver at 7 o'clock, Wings Over the Rockies. I don't think I'm going to go. Although even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking maybe I should go. Kurt Vonnegut wrote an essay one time about giving a talk, and he was backstage waiting to go to the podium for his talk, and he's wondering, why are these people here? I'm not like a professional speaker. Trump's not a professional speaker. I mean, he's an entertaining guy and all that, but he's not an Earl Nightingale, you pick them. There are people that have the ability to give a talk that's phenomenal, and you don't want to miss it. Trump is not like that. He's one of these speakers that kind of gives you a headache, and he's a little bit wacky. At least that's how he comes across on the media. But Kurt Vonnegut in this essay is waiting backstage to go to the podium. He's wondering, why am I doing this? And then it comes to him, and he's doing it because these are his readers. And the readers are there because they read him. And yes, that's the way he communicates primarily through his writing. But sometimes you don't know if people are telling the truth or not unless you're face to face with them. That's Kurt Vonnegut's thought. And the more I've given thought to what he says there, I think that's absolutely right. You know, we have this incredible ability to take what's in our mind and get it down on paper and have it published and people read it. Or now electronic media like this. You know, we can transmit our thoughts now, but never exactly like they are in our head. And I've been doing these small group activities for nearly 20 years now. And what becomes more and more clear to me is when you get people in a room together, even if it's a large auditorium, and here's the person giving a speech, Kurt Vonnegut up at the front at the podium, there are things you can tell about that person when you're in the same room with them that you just can't tell through media of any kind, and especially books. You know, books, you don't have the inflection of the sound of their voice, you don't have visual cues. In a book, you know, this is just something, as I was thinking about this morning, it came to me, and this in a way overstates the case. I don't think we should start burning books because they are miraculous. I can wake up in the middle of the night, have a conversation with a dead person by opening a book and looking at what they wrote, you know, centuries ago. And that's a wonderful thing. However, there's a downside, and this probably isn't talked about enough. You know, this overstates the case slightly, but books are Borg. You know, you read that book and it has a Borg-like quality to it. And, you know, if we're face to face in the same room, I can get cues from your facial expression, from the tone of the voice, the words, all kinds of things that are just lost with the book. And when we take the book, then we take it a step further, and instead of me doing my own thinking, shaped by the books I've read, and then talking as a human being, I start being a mechanical doll spouting what's in the book. That's totally Borg-like. You know, if I read Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Thomas Merton, whoever it is, I read, digest, and internalize, and then their words inform my words. But it's a totally different thing if I just take their thoughts and try to substitute them for mine. Right now, there's a TV show on that I think is a great metaphor for this, Brain Dead. And these ants get into people's heads and take over their body, and they become ideologues or their head blows up. And it's a great image because I think that is what happens. If we become Borg, we take this book, you know, doctrine, there is nothing wrong with doctrine. Doctrine is an effective teaching tool. But the problem with doctrinaire is it is abusive and harmful, and it's Borg. Doctrinaire is not okay. The book is doctrine. Doctrinaire is me beating you over the head with the book. And doctrinaire is not okay, it's Borg. And that's why we've formed this little small business chamber of commerce. We're encouraging people to start small groups in their own neighborhood in cooperation with their local chamber of commerce, the local community newspaper, service clubs, anyone else that wants to cooperate. But the effort needs to stay independent. And we're thinking of some ways of doing it, and it's tied into this reason that we're going to start calling ourselves Socratic Startup, because it's going to very much have this quality. You know, the E-Myth came along and it said the way to be successful as a small business is to operate like you're a big business, you know, and pretend you're McDonald's. Well, how well is that working? Not too well. Small Business Administration says the way to be successful, do the market research and the careful planning that a big company does. How well is that working? Not very well. We have to reorient. Now, there is research, hard evidence, that this different approach for startup is totally on the money. We've posted a link to a audio recording of a book Dr. Amar Bahidi did on this very thing, and it's worth listening to. I think you ought to listen to it, and I will put the contact information up here at the end of the show. And we're running out of time for today. We've got these little groups here in Denver. The Socrates Cafe. You can come to one tonight at Panera Bread Lodo. That's at 16th and Market. It's at 6 o'clock. Some of us get there a little earlier and eat, but at 6 o'clock, we pick a topic. And so there's no assignment. You can just walk in. You don't have to make a reservation. Just come and join us. Panera Bread Lodo, 16th and Market tonight at 6 p.m. And you can just observe if you want, but it's a lot of fun. Tomorrow we're at the University of Denver in the Anderson Academic Commons, the old Penrose Library, and current periodicals. Same thing, we pick a topic and then discuss it, take turns asking each other questions. And then next week, every Wednesday at Trinity Methodist Church on Broadway downtown, there's a great meeting there. It starts at 7 o'clock, and it's a wonderful meeting. John Hart leads it. He does it in a slightly, each one of these meetings are a little bit different. I try to lead the one each week at the University of Denver, and if you want to start one from, if you're watching this from Philadelphia, and you've come into Denver now, and you're going to be going back to Philadelphia, start a Socrates Cafe back there. Come visit one of ours here, and I have a handout at the Saturday Socrates Cafe that might help you get it started just a little bit quicker. And we also do the Saturday group in a little bit more of a structured way, but each group takes on a life of its own. And if you go to meetup.com, they have Socrates Cafes listed there for all over the world. So wherever you are in the world, there's either a Socrates Cafe there now, or you can help start one. And Chris Phillips wrote a book called Socrates Cafe. I read it. We started one here. It was one of the first ones in the country. Chris has been here a couple of times, and he has done sort of the Johnny Appleseed of good discussion groups that are not Borg-like. At least that's the way that I see it. And philosophers in academia seem to have a resistance to it, and understandably so, because academic philosophy, I believe, and this may be my ignorant, uneducated point of view, and I may be way off in this, but to me, philosophy in the academic setting is just exactly the same phenomena as poetry in an academic system. It may help the person understand the history of poetry, but as far as being a poet, it's not too much helpful, and the understanding isn't necessarily enjoyment. So the same thing's true of startup. Academic startup is sort of pretending that startup is like chemistry or physics, but it's not. Socratic startup has a four-phase practices. There's four practices that enable you to start, grow, and flourish in your own small business. So find out about that this afternoon at the Idea Cafe Startup Workshop. Lodo, Panera Bread, same place as the Socrates Cafe. It's at 4:30. Idea Cafe Startup Workshop, 4:30. Lodo, Panera Bread, 16th and Market. And just walk-ins are welcome. You don't have to make a reservation. And again, we have a handout there you can take and take it back home with you and maybe start a group on your own. We'd be glad to help you do that. Also, my little book is online, Amazon.com. If you just go to Amazon.com, search on John Wren, Daring Mighty Things. My little book, the Kindle edition, is 99 cents. I have a standing guarantee. I'll give you $1 back if you read it and don't find it helpful, but I think you will. So Amazon.com, John Wren, Daring Mighty Things. Well, that's it for the Startup Show this week. We'll be here next week. If you'd like to be on the show and share your startup story with us, give me a call Monday or Tuesday, 303-861-1447. So until then, this is John Wren reminding you of a couple of things. I'm going to do one of my dad's sayings each week. This week it was, definition of a living wage depends on whether you're paying it or receiving it as an employee. But the other that we always need to keep in mind is this life is very short. So let's go get started. Thanks for watching.